Okay, dear colleagues, today we are here for Academic Integrity Seminar. Let's start with the introduction part. My name is Stas Demochko. I'm a coordinator of Strengthening Academic Integrity in Ukraine project. I'm pleased to have here today our colleagues from University of Minnesota Crookston. And today we're going to have a presentation or a seminar by Kristina Gray, right? And probably we'll ask Kristina to introduce herself and tell about her and her colleagues about your visit. And probably I'll just stop here and give you the floor. Okay. Please welcome Kristina Gray.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I went to the old America House when I was here 10, 12, 14 years ago. How many of you remember it in Padil? How many went to the old one? Raise your hand. You're all newbies.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a beautiful complex, just the little bit that I've seen. And so it's really fun to be here because America House was an important part of my teaching English back in 1998 to about 2007. In that, there was a gap, a couple of years, where I was back in the U.S., back in Minnesota. But Lilia, I think is her name, she was the one that was in charge of the America House, and now she's working at the embassy. So I can't wait to see her. I think it's going to happen tomorrow. Is that right, Olga? Yeah. So I was a Fulbright Scholar for those 2 years, the first 2 years, 1998 to 2000. And then my husband and I, he also was a Fulbright Scholar in economics, but I was teaching at the Linguistics University. I was teaching at a couple of other places. And then finally, I ended up at WIUU. And my husband was the dean there, and we had an amazing experience at WIUU. We had a lot of expats coming with us because we showed movies every Friday night. It was kind of a date night, I think, and we started filling up that auditorium with 300 people. That's as much as it maxed out there. And we showed a good movie, good American movie, every Friday, and we had handouts with the vocabulary words and phrases, and we had discussion groups afterwards. So I think it's still continuing as far as I know. And it's a good thing because our students here in Ukraine need to have that kind of extra source that's coming in and talking about it and discussing. So maybe you do that in your own classrooms. I'm not sure who the audience is, but I'm just suspecting you're all English teachers, right? Am I right? No? Okay. What else are you?
Financial, yeah, teacher in the uni, but not of English.
Okay. What else? Who else?
Medical University.
Okay, medical.
I'm Artur Kamanova, just congratulated and got promotion to study English, like from the best students. So just to study English is
Okay. Okay.
English.
What else?
Researchers in sciences.
Okay.
HR assistant, representative as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a student, like football player, but future English teacher.
Okay. Excellent. Who else? That's not an English teacher.
Business management.
Okay.
Financial University and Nikolai.
Okay. All right. Well, and then let me introduce the two other people that are representing University of Minnesota Crookston. If you would, Michelle, maybe you stand up and just say a little bit about yourself.
Sure, thank you. I'm Michelle Christopherson. I'm the Director of Admissions at the University of Minnesota Crookston. The University of Minnesota is a public land-grant institution that has 5 campuses in the state of Minnesota, and our campus is located in the northernmost part of the state. We're about 90 miles from the Canadian border, from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and about 300 miles from the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. So pleased to be here this evening, so thank you for joining us.
And Oksana.
Okay, I'm a Dr. Oksana Wieland, so I do represent business department at the university. I teach finance and economics courses. So if you would have some specific questions, I would be happy to answer.
Okay, good. Well, now I know my audience. And you're not all English teachers. And I am now focused more on writing. And I've done so many PowerPoint shows now in the last couple of days that we've been here that I'm not sure what I have here to show you, but I have lived in a lot of other countries besides Ukraine. And you total them all up, I was in the Philippines as a Peace Corps volunteer, I was in China, teaching there in the northeast part of China back in 86 to 88. Then I ended up on a Fulbright to Kyrgyzstan, but simultaneous to that I was in Kazakhstan, and I met my husband there, and everyone thinks he's Kazakh when I say that. No, he's from Kansas. He's quite American. So then we got married. He prevailed upon me to get married. Okay, we got married. And then we ended up in D.C. because he was economist with USDA. And then we thought, well, let's go to Ukraine. And so that's my second Fulbright. And like I said, we liked it so much we stayed 6-7 years. And now I'm back. And this is after going to Kazakhstan, where I taught in Kyiv, and then at NAU, Nazarbayev University in Astana. So total that, and that's 15 years out of my own country, all right? And I do love my country, and the U.S., but I've seen a lot of different cultures, and I've experienced a lot of different things. But tonight I'm going to share with you some things that I feel are important, but I've got to do a kind of to support myself here, because I could get into trouble. It's very political, what I'm going to be talking about. First of all, I want to find out who is not Ukrainian. Okay, where are you from?
I am a native Crimean Tatar. I'm from Crimea.
Okay, excellent. How about,
I heard who is Ukrainian.
Oh, okay.
I was surprised because of one hand.
Who is not Ukrainian? Okay, so we have an American back there. We've got, Oksana, what would you say you are?
American.
Okay, American, all right. So,
Half-blood.
half-blood, okay. Yes. What are you, half-blood?
Half Ukrainian, half Russian.
Okay, all right. Well, I've lost friends on Facebook because when I was watching what was going on with your revolution a couple years ago, I would be putting things out there, and I have Russian friends from Kazakhstan, and they didn't like what I was putting out there. So I'm just saying I'm going to be putting things out there that you might agree with, but you might not. And but my whole point of bringing this out is talking about having a voice, having a message, knowing your audience, and getting it out there, and having a passion about it. And I happen to have a passion about Ukraine's very painful history. And I'm going to make a guess about this proverb that I heard back 14 years ago when I was interviewing survivors of the Holodomor. And so, keep your tongue behind your teeth. I understand that's also a Russian proverb, but you're familiar with it, right? This is common for you to hear this. And I would maybe say that this is why Americans maybe don't know about your past. And maybe within your own country, you didn't feel at liberty to talk about it until maybe the last 15, 20 years when the textbooks were opening up more about it. But anyway, it's just, I'm going to make some leaps, maybe some stretches here from my own American perspective. And I'm willing to be corrected. I'm willing to hear you say what you have on your mind or on your heart about this difficult topic. So let me make sure that this works. Let's see if we can, yep. I like this quote. And I use it a lot with my students, maybe one of the first sessions. But maybe if someone could read this quote for me, please.
There can be no knowledge without emotion. We may be aware of a truth, yet until we have felt its force, it's not ours. To the recognition of the brain must be added the experience of the soul.
Okay, there's a lot of words there. What do you think that means?
You want me to translate it?
Not translate, no, just give me a paraphrased version of it.
you shouldn't be engaged. What I understood from this, that you should be totally in what you are in.
Okay, what's a good word for that? Be totally into what you're
Passion.
into. Yes.
Do it passionate.
Have a passion. Have a passion. And I know most all of you have a passion about something. But I happen to have a passion about your history. And I've had to be quiet about it because I found out that this is a very unpopular topic among some academics in Canada and the US. But that's not really my main focus there. But I know you have expectations about what you want to hear tonight about writing. So why is it a good idea to improve your writing skills? It doesn't matter if you're an English teacher, because I'm hearing there's different disciplines here. Why is it good in your discipline to improve your writing? Yeah.
My favorite proverb to write my own narratives, my own history.
Okay. All right.
To bring the message how I see it.
All right. Very good. What else?
It's one of the ways of communication. So we communicate our thoughts, our feelings.
Okay. Good.
But in written.
Yep. Yeah. In written form. Okay. What else?
You should write in such a way you could read it again, and you should write it maybe sometimes quickly, and it's skill.
I want to come back to that. Thank you for saying that. What else?
You have to find the right words to pass it to your audience, so the audience can understand what you're saying.
There you go.
They can leave it to generations.
Yes, for the next generations to know. What else? Before I come back to what you just said. Okay, Earl.
For example, in management, it's very difficult to make people follow your directions without, if you're not keen on explaining exactly what you mean and what you expect, so you will fail.
Okay.
So the same, we expect our students to do the same, and if we cannot do it ourselves, so then we will both fail.
You need to be a model.
That's right.
Okay.
So, and again, nobody's perfect, so why improve? So because, well.
That's right. We all need to work on that. What you're seeing tonight now, some of the quotes I'm going to bring out and some of the things that I've put on these slides is something I wrote 14 years ago. And I've put it on the shelf, I've put it away, and I'm glad I had it written. I'm going through a lot of files right now, organizing things, and I came up with this. It's like, oh, this is about Ukraine, and I'm going to Ukraine. This might be handy. So it's exactly that. You say for the next generations, for other people to know. And if you don't document it, you're going to forget it. But it's thanks to the oral, the interviews that I did, that I was able to get some of this information. So let's go on. How to update academic writing standards in Ukraine. This might be a burning issue for some of you. What are your writing standards? In Ukrainian or Russian, what are the standards?
They're low.
Lower? Okay. Down to the basics. All right, what else?
Maybe they are not that low, but not like everybody obeys them.
Okay. What do you mean by not obey?
Breaking rules, dishonesty, whatever, cheating, plagiarism, for sure.
The P word. Oh, I hate to talk about this, but here we are. All right, what to do about dishonest practices in academia?
To promote academic culture.
What's that?
To promote academic
To promote it,
culture.
yeah. What else?
Father.
Yeah. And any other things that you can do? Fire them? You know, give them a fail grade if they're students?
Talk about them. Firstly, we need to talk about this project.
Okay, so bring it up first. It's like, you're not going to be handing in a paper that you've taken off the internet. No. You need to be following. How many are familiar with APA formatting or MLA? MLA, Turabian, Chicago. There's a lot of different styles out there, and you probably have your own here in Ukraine. But I'm teaching right now APA. I was teaching at WIU, MLA. But those are certain rules to follow. But I'm going beyond dishonesty in writing papers. There's this dishonesty in people that are academics that lie or spin certain things. And I've run into this. In fact, I had a WIU student who was looking at the Holodomor, and he said, Mrs. Gray, there's someone from Canada. His name is whatever Tottle, I forget now. And he is saying that the Holodomor didn't happen, or it was just a natural phenomenon, or something with the famine happened because of the... Yeah, it just happened, yes. So, I mean, that's dishonest. So we're not talking about plagiarism, we're talking about what people are trying to promote to persist in a lie. Okay, let's see if this will... Okay. So, the solutions for academic dishonesty is find Ukraine's collective voice. And I think I did that back 14 years ago when I did this, 2004, when I was asking survivors of the Holodomor, what do you know about the 1930s? What's your story? And then when I started hearing their stories, it wasn't just those 2 years, 1932-33. It was leading up to World War II and the aftermath after World War II. Then you start talking about displaced people. Well, why was I hearing stories about displaced people? Because they were the ones that did end up in the U.S., in Minneapolis. That's where I found them. I was going up to Canada. I'm glad Michelle mentioned that. I thought, well, that's a whole lot easier than going down to Minneapolis. I hadn't even thought to go to Minneapolis, but things happened, and things opened up for me that was unbelievable. So the collective voice was what I was gathering, and I have interviewed maybe about 10 survivors, and they're probably all passed now. Maybe 1 or 2 are still alive. But the collective voice was right there in Minneapolis. The collective voice for Ukraine is still here. And it may not be a living grandparent or great-grandparent. It might be what you know. And I know I talked to you about, you had things written by your grandfather, right?
Yeah.
He had written down many, many pages.
Handwritten letter, yeah. Handwritten letter.
That's such a gift. Because now you can transcribe it or type it up and give it to the next generation or those who are interested. Okay, know your reading audience. Who, if you did collect all this, and if it was your passion, who would be your audience?
My friends, colleagues.
Okay. Who? Family, yep. Who else? Students.
Those who probably think you're not right, but they will read to prove or to support or reject the point of view.
Yep.
I know.
We don't know. But my what I tell my students is you have to keep writing. I started a blog in Kazakhstan in 2008. We're almost getting up to 10 years. And I wrote every day. And if I couldn't find words to write about Kazakhstan, I just put pictures up. But if you want to look it up, you can look up Kazakh Nomad. I was getting a lot of hits. People were interested in Kazakhstan. And I can see the countries. I'm with WordPress. How many do blogs? Anyone do blogs? I have done it now for these 9 years. I started my first blog here in Ukraine. I was stupid about my blog, and I put my name in, Kristina Gray. It's like no one does that. You find another name. You want to be anonymous, because I was putting things out there. But anyway, what I told the students yesterday that I was talking to is you've got to write. And the way to do it is just start a blog. And I make it sound simple. And it is after you've done it for a while. But this is where you find your audience. And I've seen people from all over the world hit my blog. And I maybe still have about 60 or 70 a day that hit my blog. I'm not even writing about Kazakhstan anymore. I'm writing about Minnesota. But they're looking at my old blogs. They put the keywords in and they get me. All right, so here we have what the U of M Board of Regents has written down for the Student Honor Code. So we've got ourselves covered here talking about plagiarism, and it's what you see here shall mean representing the words, creative work, or ideas of another person as one's own without providing proper documentation of source. What does providing proper documentation of source mean? References, the in-text citations, the name of the person where you got the idea. I had a student that was talking about diabetics or something. She was writing a nice assignment, and she was using an analogy of a train and the different cars. And I thought, oh, that's brilliant. Wow, that's wonderful. Then I came to find out, because I read the article, she had pulled it, that nice analogy from someone's article. Well, that's not her idea then. So she needs to give proper documentation of the source. But she didn't know. She was just a freshman student. But see, this is what happens. And some of my students do it innocently. They don't know. But you as the teacher or administrator or manager need to call them on it. Okay? As a teacher, we're bound to do that. Okay, let's move. Oh, I just, get off a heavy subject here. Here's some old books from the Carnegie. This is just probably 100 years old. All right. So, going back to the heavy subject, it is the responsibility of all students to understand the standards and methods of proper attribution and to clarify with each instructor the standards, expectations, and reference techniques appropriate to the subject area and class requirements, including group work and internet use. There were students at WIUU, I hate to say this, but 10, 15 years ago, that would be putting up things on their PowerPoint, and they had just cut and pasted from the internet, and the links were still showing. And it's like, well, that's not your work, is it? Where did you get that? But they didn't know. They were new at this. And so I had to call them on it. But this is talking about U of M students, and that they have to follow these standards and showing the proper attribution. I also have, yeah, go ahead.
Why only students?
What?
Why only students?
Well,
sometimes teachers also do appreciate, let's say, when a student submits a work, which is from the internet, and they do not reject it, just okay. So why not teachers are there also?
Yeah, we should be accountable. Yeah, but it's this is actually
both sides.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm glad you said that, because when I have my students do their last paper, they pick a topic that they want to write about. And I ask them to put quotes or paraphrasing and put the proper attribution there. And it's like, I should be doing that too. All the teachers should be doing that as well, to be models, like you mentioned. We should be having that as our practice. So yeah, right now we're just talking about students, but teachers should be accountable to that too. Absolutely. All right. So I know some of you have already seen all this, but I have to go through with my students all the time. What's a scholarly reference and what's the popular press? Anything with any articles that have a bibliography or references or works cited or anything like that is going to be reputable, and that's scholarly. It's written by an expert, so it's going to have a name next to it. There's no such thing as N period, A period, no author, no. That author is very proud to have something published. So you're not going to get away with the NA thing. It's usually an original contribution and focused on one discipline. And it's peer-reviewed. So I have my students peer-review each other, so they find out what that's like. So it's quality control, whereas popular press, they're usually shorter. They're written by the staff, so there's no name. There's many photographs and ads, and written for general population. Okay, how about, let's see, let me quiz you. The Economist, is that scholarly or popular press?
Popular.
Very good. Yeah, someone.
Because there is no author.
Exactly. Usually not. My husband reads it. Most economists, if they're worth their salt, they will read The Economist. But it's not scholarly. How about Cosmopolitan? Vogue? People? No, those are all popular. And they're written for an age or a grade level, maybe about 8th grade, 10th grade level. It's true. All right, so research terms, citations, in-text citations, keyword searches. This is very important. This is very difficult for non-native speakers because they don't know all the other synonyms. I just say go to the thesaurus, just find those other words. And some will put a whole sentence in when they're going to the research databases. You don't want to do that. So say that I have a student that really wants to learn about the Holodomor, okay? So what would be some of the key words that they might put in? What? Famine. Okay, what else? Stalin. Yep. 1932. Sure. Okay. So all of those with a comma after it, so you don't have to say forced famine in Ukraine in 1932-33. No, just get it down so you maybe have about 25, 30 sources to look at, not 300 or 1,000. I think the rest is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so now I'm making a big jump from that academic methodology sort of thing now to the meat of what I wanted to talk about. Figuring out Ukraine's painful history. Okay, so I talked to these adult children. They were in their 70s. And what are the Ukrainian students' practices of plagiarism or cheating? I think this is where I can make this leap from what I've talked to the older Ukrainians and what I saw with my students when I first had them, and I had to fail half of my WIUU students the first time around when I was teaching writing because they didn't know. They hadn't learned this in high school. What happened in Ukraine in the early 1930s, what happened in subsequent years. So this is what I was learning from my interviewees. Here's a review of the literature. Robert Conquest had a very important book out, Dr. James Mace. He had worked in the 1980s, and he had done the research for the U.S. Congress, documenting 100 oral interviews. William Chamberlain, Execution by Hunger. As you can see, there's many authors here talking about what they had researched. Let's go on. And that's what I tell my students too, is look in the bibliography or the references and look for key words from the titles. You can get some ideas from that. Okay, so where are the documents? This is an intern we had working at our Carnegie. We've got newspapers here. By the way, Michelle's husband is the editor of our local newspaper. It's a daily paper. For a small town, that's really amazing. So these are the old Crookston Daily Times, going back to the 1880s and 1890s. Her husband is still keeping it up. So, and he's been good for me because when I want to get my voice out there, he lets me, he prints it. He prints whatever I send him.
As long as she has her citations.
Stickler, isn't he? Yeah. Here's our current reality at the Carnegie, and it's too much light really, but this is what it looks like with the fluorescent lights, really bad floor. This is the Photoshop version with the period lights and wooden floor, and it looks nice. And so that's kind of the transformation I'm seeing here in Ukraine. The students that I talked to from WIU are so much better, and I'm sure that's happening across this whole town. Is there's just some good work happening with your educational system. And so a transformation is what's needed, and a change. And what's in your textbooks now that wasn't there 20 years ago about the Holodomor, the changes are happening. So what are the white holes in Ukraine's history? You know what white holes are, right? What's the Russian word for it?
Black holes, I think.
Oh, you call them black holes? Okay. It's just kind of like the sour cream that covers up what the truth is. Yeah, okay. What has been photoshopped about the Holodomor? What has been changed? Kind of like you saw the difference.
Numbers.
Numbers, yeah, isn't that right? What number do they say? How many perished in those 2 years?
5, like it's happens. Like, oh,
Yeah, 5 million. Oh well.
it was just needed very
Yeah.
to improve our standard.
Yeah.
Industry, and we just overdone. It's over 5 million. It's such.
Well, I think Robert Conquest would say 7 to 10 million. And the census isn't there anymore. That was obliterated. So you don't really know. And then World War pass this out. These, looking at Appendix A, yeah, the two of you have that. This shows the people that I interviewed. You'll see Tatiana was my gatekeeper. And the amazing thing about Tatiana was that she had been my landlady like 25 years before. But through my connections with the Ukrainian people, I was able to come back to her and ask her the questions, and she helped me a lot by finding Sasha. And Andrei I found through a Ukrainian Orthodox priest, or Luba, Vera, Helena. You can see where they were all from. Marta was close to Dnipropetrovsk, and my other gatekeeper, Misha, he was close to Ternopil. So, oh, thank you. No, don't have any.
No, it's the same question, I believe.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean by gatekeeper?
Okay, anyone answer that question?
Like on a border, something.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. Do you know what a gatekeeper would be? When you're doing qualitative research, or quantitative research, but usually qualitative. Qualitative is when you're getting actual data from oral interviews. Quantitative would be the statistics and the numbers, right? So qualitative, you have to have someone that they trust you, and then the people they allow you to meet, they can, those interviewees, potential interviewees, trust me as the interviewer because of the gatekeeper. So the gatekeeper opens the gate. And so it's like, I was so amazed that after trying to go up to Winnipeg 3 times to find my interviewees, I found it through my former landlady and through this other priest. So thanks for asking what a gatekeeper is. You know, sometimes I don't even know, you know, that this is not known. So please, if you have any other questions. But now let's turn to the other side. And after I had talked to them, this is what I came up with. And this is for a study I had done for a qualitative research class. But you can see with the 1917, there was first wave immigration to Canada and US. Now this is significant because if there's something happening before 1917, it means that they were disgruntled with what was going on, and so they end up in Canada or US. So they don't know what happened with the Bolsheviks and what happened with Lenin and Stalin. They're just getting it secondhand, right? And so those are going to be typically your deniers of what happened. Then you've got the people that came in the second wave, and maybe the third wave after World War II. So you have to know when they came in and who influenced them and where they ended up. So there's a lot of variables to look at. So you can see the Soviets introduced the 5-year plan. Then there's more arrests in Ukraine. You can see 1935-40. When did Stalin and Hitler sign the non-aggression pact? 1939, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's significant to know. And then 41 to 45, this is when Andrei's father was sent off to Siberia. Then you have, after the war, or 45 to 50, you've got the DP camps, the displaced persons camps, and that's where Helena, Vera, Luba, Sasha, Andrei, and Marta all were. And then people leave the Ukraine for US, and so that's your second wave of immigration. And then you see here the top bubble, adult children, tell about Holodomor in the 32, 33, and it's to the time when I was doing this, 2004. So they're telling what they witnessed. They're telling me. And in fact, what was so amazing, there was a Sasha that was in this Ukrainian Orthodox church in Northeast Minneapolis, who he kept going to this church, but the people that also were survivors didn't even know he was a survivor. And he had an amazing story, and I think I might have a quote of him. But you can see my assertions here, and I've got more, but we'll just keep it to this. Okay, so you see the historical timeline. Okay, so facts from first-hand witness accounts reveal outside manipulation to disenfranchise the Ukrainian people. What does outside manipulation mean? It was the violence, it was the terror, and that equals genocide. And according to Robert Conquest, Dr. Mace, Ukraine is a post-genocidal society. Yep. Where's the redemptive means to heal this land? My husband keeps reminding me of, if you're going to have all these sobering facts, if you want to get it published, no American wants to read that. We like happy endings. Have you noticed that? In our movies, we like happy endings. But, so the redemptive part would be, how has the family healed? How have the survivors healed? Okay, nice stained glass one. My assertions after these interviews. The Soviet system undermined the father's role in the family. Story after story after story came through. They were classified as kulaks, or enemy of the people, which created warfare, class warfare. It wasn't so much, there's a name for the upper high class that had a lot of land, and those were the Germans from Russia. They were persecuted first. And then it was the kulak, and they just had a little piece of land. And then, and then the next assertion that you see in the handout, mother's role to work around the Soviet system, to survive in order to feed her family, was she did join the collective. The father's gone. He's either been killed, he's sent off to Siberia, or he's hiding. So it created a family solidarity. Many of the grandparents would give up their food, and they were the ones that died first, or maybe it was the children that died. Okay, top of the Carnegie. All right, interviewees' assertions. What I was hearing from them was they wanted to kill our souls, and I tape recorded every interview. One of the interviews was in Ukrainian. The woman was shaking. She was still in fear, and she's 70 years old. It happened when she was 5, and in fact, she was the one that said people's eyes look like police sirens, bloated stomachs, all of that. They wanted to enslave Ukraine by making people die of starvation. They wanted to break our souls. One was a son of a principal of a school, and he said life was at a standstill, and he made no eye contact with me. So, survivor's guilt. Yeah. They picked certain people for the cruel work, those with no hearts to be, how do you pronounce this, udarniks? Okay. So, the disenfranchisement of Ukrainians, classifying people, punishing them by confiscating food, uprooting the families, inciting of terror when the father was hiding or sent off to Siberia or killed. Reunions with missing family members were joyous occasions. As I'm rereading what I had written 14, 13 years ago, I can hear the voices of my interviewees. And here's the difficult part, is that there was the one that hadn't told anyone for 50 years what he had gone through. And he came and he showed a huge map of Ukraine and Russia. And they were a pretty wealthy family. They had gold coins. The oldest brother was sent off to Moscow to sell that so he could bring chickens or something back to the family. And it was stolen from him, and they hadn't seen or heard anything. They didn't know what had happened. And maybe it was a year later, they saw almost a skeleton coming back to the yard, and it was the older brother. He had somehow gotten back, and then this is thousands of kilometers away. But I mean, I'm hearing the voices coming back to me of how, when they were talking and giving me their story. So I feel like I need to do something, so I'm doing it now with sharing what I know from my American perspective. So what is Ukraine's foundation for academic integrity? Well, maybe to check some of the people that are the deniers or the ones that are perpetrating a lie or the untruth. Ukraine's consequences for academic dishonesty. What should the punishment be? Well, fail or get fired or whatever. Who carries it out? Which Ukrainian university gives a penalty for dishonesty? I don't know. I mean, are there more strict universities than others? Okay. What to do as 21st century educators? And like, again, I was assuming you were all educators, but you are in a sense with whatever role you have. Based on what Ukrainians went through over 80 years ago, the consequences of students who think plagiarism is okay. Recognize students' disregard for private property and thus intellectual property. Hello to more experiences of grandparents of students has a carryover of trying to beat the Soviet system in order to survive in the academic setting. Okay, here's where I'm taking my lead. I think the stories have come down the generations. You find out how the mother tried to survive, how they hid grain, how they hid the pig, how they did the different things in order to feed the family. So I've had students, I'm sorry to say, at WIU that were telling me how they cheated, or they were proud of how they got away with cheating on a test. I'm thinking, I'm horrified. You're bragging about this? Well, then I'm thinking, okay, is this the stretch that there's something about trying to beat the system, which back then was beating the Soviet system to make them join the collective? Is there now a new system with academia where there's rules and you better follow them, and if you don't? So, I don't know. This is where it's open for discussion. And I think that's my last slide. Oh, there's my mom and dad. They were visiting WIU. My dad had never had a passport before, and this was his first trip, and you'd think he'd go to Denmark because that's his roots, but he loved Ukraine because he knew we liked it. And here's the setting sun, which you can't see very well, but I'm done. Now I want to hear from you, and any thoughts that you have, I'm just really eager to hear.
So your assumption was that it's kind of in our genes to break the system, any system.
Well, sort of. Kind of.
Actually, it's the truth.
Okay, all right.
Seems like that.
All right, maybe. Yeah.
I think it dates back to Shevchenko times.
Yeah.
If you look at the poetry of Shevchenko,
Okay.
like, it tells about terrific life of peasants. And, it describes how the peasantries, nearly were just dying on their knees, begging for food, and the perspective were miserable. Read the poem like Katerina. It tells, about the Ukraine of 200 years ago,
Okay.
in his time. It doesn't mean that it was oppressed by, external remedies, but it tells about the secrets of the soul, how the people were not necessarily trying to cheat, but to survive in these harsh surroundings,
Right.
which were imposed by them or by the society.
Okay.
So maybe the roots are a little bit deeper.
Okay, thanks.
Of course, family, it was terrible. I can tell you about
Right.
my story with my family. They were in Kherson area,
Okay.
and some of my relatives went for food, as you said before, to change some coins.
Right.
And then he disappeared, just simply disappeared. Maybe he was dead, killed on the road. I think he was killed on the road,
Right.
robbed and killed on the road. That
Yep.
was the history.
Yep.
And the people who lived close to big towns, they tried to eat, especially in
Yep.
close to the lakes.
Yep.
There was some fish, they were catching fish, trying to survive on that. Of course, if you were inland, then you are finished.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for sharing that. I'm not up on the Shevchenko, sorry, and maybe I should be, but that's very good. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, but on the other hand, if we think about students who don't want to follow the rules in Ukraine because they are trying to somehow cheat the system because they are trying to survive and they have this memory of their great grandparents surviving the system, then how can we explain students who go to study abroad to the US universities or to the European universities, and there they somehow are trying to follow the rules. They actually sign the honor codes and they stop cheating immediately. We have a lot of flex students who go to study to the US for a year program, Ukrainian students, like high school students, and they follow the rules there. But then they come back to Ukraine and they again start cheating, because the culture of cheating here in Ukraine, well, it's like they are allowed to cheat here because everyone is cheating.
Right.
But they stop cheating in the US because there are like this strict rules, and they well, obey the rules.
Right. Well, I think what's the reason? There's consequences in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
And you're familiar with, there's a certain term here, but you can put it through a database and you can find out how much has been copied. We have Turnitin, if you're familiar with Turnitin. But what is it called here? Platna? Or there's a certain...
Unflag?
Maybe that's it. That you,
a couple of services.
Yeah, there is.
yeah, I'm sure. And
we have plenty of that.
okay. But if the university or the teacher doesn't call the student on it, they find out there's no consequences, they're going to do it. We all have plagiarized, right? We all have done it. I admit I did it and I feel ashamed. That was in high school. I knew I could get by. But now I'm the one that's the police officer with my students. Yeah? Okay, go ahead.
I wonder if there are any other vice versa experience. If you bring American students here, how many of them will follow the common rules? Like, if it is acceptable in the group they get into cheating off the plagiarizing, how they will stick with that?
Yeah, good question. I have no answer for that.
And actually, I can give you an answer. I can't say about all students, but as I had the experience of teaching both at universities, I mean, so in Germany, but still at the American University. Chile is the American University, and the same, but in Ukraine, probably I was in that. So the same in Ukraine, and I have had such experience. It was very interesting. When one of my students from Germany, don't ask me why, but she decided to take one course at my home university in Ukraine. So she took human resource management in Ukraine. So she moved from Heidelberg to Nikolaev just for one course. Guys, she cheated. I caught her. It was like, gotcha, what are you doing? It was like, everybody did it. Everybody. So, and actually answering your question. So why our students cheat? So because they know we will forgive them. So there is excuse. Why you're doing it? So because like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, or it was accidentally, I don't know, there's a piece of paper that was accidentally put in my pocket by a ghost. So, but still, you know, and there's no punishment. So, and again, example vice versa. So the same student from my home university in Ukraine, so she got bachelor at our university, and then she moved to Schiller International University in Heidelberg, and also I taught her there, so we had and research of business and analysis. So Veronica also cheated in Germany. So she cheated in Ukraine, and she did the same in Germany. Thanks God she didn't do it on my class. So, well, because actually I have been her teacher for 4 years in Ukraine, and I know all her tricks. So I was lucky, but actually she did the same, unfortunately, I'm sorry. And so actually the question of cheating is very, I mean, rather relevant. So like, well, if you have 1 second, so it's kind of probably a job. I had a student, so she was probably the most brilliant student in cheating. So it was her final exam. I knew she was cheating. I was standing just next to her. I saw nothing, but I was sure she was copying something. So of course she didn't know information that she was writing. I knew she did it, but I couldn't catch her. So after the exam, so she got her CS, for example, I remember, so I asked, like, Julie, I know you did it. How? She told me, you know, she was so proud of herself. Earphone, like, you know, so some like magnet, something in her ear, and next door room there was a person who told her what to write. Brilliant.
Yeah, I had a student tell me that they had the genes, you know, and when they were frayed, and how they had color-coded the A, B, C, D. So pink was A, B was blue, and C was, you know, and so they had their hand, where they got the answers out of. And so they're proud of it. They
Thank you for the idea.
Yeah, brilliant, right? Okay. One last thought, yeah.
Is the person who can like represent student community in Kyiv? I'm from this place, university, it used to be in Crimea,
Sure,
now
yeah.
it's here.
Okay.
And problem is I have a friend of mine, his name is like Mike Lutz, some of person who is involved in education in back to America, and he said the only problem that the Ukrainian system in Ukraine has is that the Ukrainian system, the educational system, is aimed to memorizing things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's probably students in Ukraine, like they have to cheat because they like physically they can't remember all the information they are supposed to, like supposed to.
It's like more reproductive than innovative.
Yeah.
So like in America, if you memorize everything, you can pass it. You have to use your brain because it's aimed to using your brain. Here in America or here in Ukraine,
Yeah.
we have to memorize things in order to pass the test.
Sure.
So it's like it's logically.
Let's hear from another student.
Yeah, hi everyone. Actually, basically, I didn't think that like students cheat because they can't remember, just maybe because they don't care. I mean, there are a lot of excuses and a lot of circumstances why really students have no time, for example, for sitting and learning. Like, if we're talking about like past time, I know that even my teacher and all their friends, they were learning like dozens of A4 formative papers for their exams, and not like writing, but oral exam, which is harder in times.
Yep, yep.
And there was no excuses because they really learned that and they knew that. But the thing is that nowadays we have much more information, and the problem is that I think the educational system can really divide this information for really important one, and those that was important during the past time. So we like waste time for a couple of, for example, even subjects that really like right now are not already so that important as it was in the past. So of course students have to rationalize and prioritize the subject that they have to learn for, and they do not have to. So it's like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought
But
up.
of course it's not an excuse also. So
Yeah.
just
Oh yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
I'd like to say that this problem is mostly subjective, more subjective than objective. What I mean is everything depends on the teacher.
Yeah.
You know that the system of education in Ukraine is not ideal.
Yeah.
And actually the teachers are not ideal because their work is underestimated. So as a result, what do we have? Teachers don't care. And our educational system, the foundation of our educational system is just enthusiastic teachers who are just passionate about their job, nothing more. So everything starts at school. When our students, when they start learning English, they are not taught to write properly.
Okay.
And everything should start from this simple sentence and then develop probably to the essays. Nobody cares. So there are some enthusiastic teachers who try to do that. But that's just like a drop of water in the ocean. So what do we have as a result? Teachers give, let's say, irrelevant tasks, just to give a task.
Okay.
And they don't care whether it's creative, whether it's individual, or it's absolutely plagiarized. So as a result, students or pupils start cheating at school.
I see.
When they come to the university, they go on doing that. Unless the teacher is really enthusiastic and the teacher is acquainted with the program, those computerized programs, anti-plagiarism programs, and the paper goes through this program.
Right.
What is introduced at the universities nowadays? You know that our students write a lot of term papers, MA theses, etc.
Right.
So now, well, it seems to me that's the second year already, when the papers should go through the anti-plagiarism programs. And there are already some standards. The percentage of plagiarism, which so-called plagiarism, which is allowed. If your paper contains more, so you fail.
Yeah, right.
So, and it has been already introduced at the universities, and it starts working. So let's only hope for the best. But if they don't learn to do it at school,
right.
So well, it takes great pains to improve everything and to correct at the university. So they write the first paper, they fail, so they know that they are going to be punished, and so next time they improve. I'm sorry for such a long.
No, that's fine. I like what you said about it's got to be caught earlier. But let me tell you this: how many are writing teachers actually, besides me? Anyone else? Okay. I can tell you this: writing, being a teacher of writing and correcting students' papers is very hard work. No one wants to do it. When I was in Kazakhstan, I had mentioned to one Kazakh teacher who was Russian. I said, "You want to read good papers, don't you?" And somewhere in the conversation, I said that again. I didn't realize. I said, "You want to read good papers, don't you?" And she called me on, I guess, the third time. She said, "You keep saying you want to read good. What do you mean by you want to read good papers?" I said, "Well, you want to make sure that the students are investing in it, and that you enjoy reading the content." Because those teachers were assigning papers that they were getting off the internet, and they were reading the same thing. It's back to they don't care because they're just trying to get them through and out of there. And it is. Someone asked me at WIU yesterday, why are you writing? It's like my answer was no one else wants to do it. It's pretty much a secure job. So. But if you give your students something that they can be enthusiastic about and put their heart into it, you're going to see some great things. And I'm pretty hard on my students. I hear I have a reputation. But you know what? I've heard from some that said, thank you. Thank you for putting me through this. I'm no different than a coach. Sometimes I see myself as a coach. Or if you're in music, you appreciate that music teacher that made you really work at whatever instrument or voice or whatever. So I leave you with that. It's a hard, difficult problem. And I don't like writing the letter to the Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs. This person got 73% on their Turnitin, or 51%. And that was a Chinese and Mongolian student, and they didn't know. But my American students, you know, the ones that have gotten it maybe in high school are pretty good. They know. How can that happen here? I think it has to start earlier. Yeah.
Can I tell you something? We've been talking about students and teachers, but I think it also has to deal with the parents. The parents should explain to their children why they shouldn't copy or using the different style of plagiarism, why they should create something like on their own, something.
Good point.
I think it should start from the family.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah, but in this case, the family rules should not go differently from academic rules. Like if I explain it at home, and then he or she comes to school, and all her or major or most of her classmates do it another way.
Yeah.
Then there would be like a conflict. So I think that family is important, but the system is more systematic. Academic reality is more important.
Well, the age group thing. You want to be like your classmates. You don't want to stick out. The tall poppy syndrome. Did we talk about that? Or no? It's Australian. Oh, it was my seatmate on the plane coming here. She was talking about that. Okay. Yeah, boy, you guys want to talk. All right.
Maybe to wrap up. Yes, I guess it's all about motivation. Let's say a lot of students are not motivated actually to study.
Okay.
Let's say when we're talking about a person who goes to study in the USA, some of them will cheat, some of them won't. Why? It's about motivation.
Yeah.
And why? Maybe it also comes back to our history.
Okay.
We have to admit that we have too many universities. If we compare number of universities per person, like that, to the number of universities in Germany, let's say, we have more. Okay, way more. And then it's like, I guess in late 90s, it's become like very, very popular. You have to have higher education. Okay. But at the same time, we like people in colleges when it comes to professional education. And now, like, more people, they go to universities without realizing what for. And then, like, from students, we receive feedbacks like, okay, we started that, but then I realized that I didn't need it. So why did you go? You have to understand what is higher education and why are you going there.
Yeah.
It's like about parents, they said, also Bill said, like a lot of parents, they just push their children in university in any, or they embark on, I don't know, on a specialty which is not for them.
Yeah. I had at WIU, I had a student that really loved music. I think she was a vocalist or something, but her parents pushed her into. Oh yeah.
That's for motivation and pushing students. My American students in Germany were very surprised about the age of our Ukrainian students.
Yeah.
So here in Ukraine, after secondary school, all our poor children are pushed to universities. So without thinking, without and so students at the university being much older. So probably they like so little, you know, in some way.
In most cases, people think that when you graduate from school, you have to go to university.
I see.
And you can't have a break.
I see. A gap.
I know,
year.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, but I know that there are in some countries, in Western countries, it's quite common, let's say, to have a year, maybe to go to work, to try yourself in different spheres, or maybe to travel around the globe, why not? And then to understand, like, your passion, and then to enter the uni. Also, sometimes, yes, students take it, like, after their bachelor's, or maybe before PhD course, also.
We are not going to solve the problems of the world, but you have brought out a lot of them, and maybe there are some solutions here. I know, Tarash, you want to be going next, right? Are you next?
You mean?
Talking?
Yeah, I just wanted to have a kind of theory to announce, to share.
I'm done, so thank you so much for...
I'll just use some time that we have left. First of all, I have to say thank you, Christine, for sharing such a great presentation. Really impressed how you blended the Holodomor topic with academic integrity. That's really something. Thank you for this. And I think we might, in our project, within our project, we should do more of showing the examples or doing the presentation on example of a particular research, how it is done, and what obstacles you have when you're doing research, or what obstacles you have when you're reviewing the research. And that's something that, in my opinion, is really helpful if you are a young researcher or student or even teacher who does writing, teaches writing. From my perspective, I just want to add to what I have lots of impression of your presentation. Just want to share. This is just a theory, no facts. I don't operate with any facts on this, but I think our society was raised on conflict affairs, well, besides on the conflict. Every time, starting from the Soviet times, we always had an enemy to fight with. And that's why I'm thinking that's why we were raised as an independent country now on a conflict, maybe fighting our enemy. So we had one revolution kind of in 1991, then 2004, and then the recent one. We are always fighting. We are not the evolutionary society, but the revolutionary. We got used to any changes that we are hoping that those changes are going to come just like immediately. We're just changing our government, fighting the system, and then we are hoping that the thing's going to be better. Thus, I'm thinking that, well, actually, now talking a lot to students, doing lots of seminars, lectures for students in different universities, I see how they have a perception of their system, their administration of the university. They are always willing to fight the system, to fight the university. They have no trust to the system. That's why I'm thinking that's kind of, again, that's only theory, that they need to fight the system and then everything's going to be good. Things are going to be fine after you fight it. That's why you cheat. That's why you do everything you need, well, to show that you can fight it. You have enough power to do it, and so on. From another perspective, I've been working a lot with the student self-governance. These guys are really active. They are doing a great job here in Ukraine. But sometimes, only my opinion, just don't want to be, not categorically, but sometimes they need to do not only protecting student rights, but to do more for their university. They should find the connection between the administration and the university to work together to find the renaissance of this trust, I would say, that might lead the university to the development of their institution and for the better, for the good. So what we do, we are actually, within our project, we have 10 universities. We are always saying the administration isn't your enemy. That's your friend that you should work with on developing or promoting the principles of academic integrity. That's not the, even if you heard a lot of cases of academic dishonesty, that doesn't mean that you have to fight against your administration. There are like 5 people in the university or professors that might be connected to any corruption cases, but that doesn't mean that all university is corrupted, right? That doesn't mean that you have to. That doesn't mean that you don't have to cooperate with the administration for the institutional development. So that's why we are working with students, with the faculty, staff, and we are saying to them that you always have to do joint projects on academic integrity on your campuses. Do as good as you can. Always involve, we are saying to faculty, always involve students. Students always involve faculty. We just want to build the bridge between those. That's sure.
I have a question. Can you finish? Or
Yeah, sure.
I have one question from our good friend from the University of California, Conrad Turner, who is with us.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and he was asking me to ask you a question. How do you and the participants of this event assess the effect of uncontrolled personal technology in the classroom on lower students' motivation and integrity? If in many classrooms students aren't engaged or aren't distracted or aren't listening to lectures, let alone participating in discussions, aren't the benefits of such technology small while the cost to real learning and reform potentially very high? So basically, how do you deal with your students using like cell phones, right, smartphones, and all this stuff?
Before you answer, I just want to do one thing. Hi, Conrad. We know you're watching us. And if you don't know who is Conrad Turner, is the guy who actually started this movement of academic integrity in Ukraine. Well, one of few.
I encourage them.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question, because my students know that they can come early to my class, but when that class starts at 9 o'clock, that means all cell phones are put away. And I say, away, like in your pocket, in your purse. I don't want to see it. So there's going to be no distraction. And I tell them if I see a cell phone, I get distracted, because I want your full attention on what we're doing. So that's not a problem. And then also the laptops are down. The laptop, they have to be down. Because I don't, they might be good at multitasking, but I'm not good at watching them do that. So I need full focus.
So do you work with, how many students do you usually have in the classroom? Because I mean, if you have like 30, if you work with 30, so it's easier to have everyone in your eyes. But if you have like 200 students, so
That's for
how do you prevent them from cheating? Because actually using technology is cheating. Even though if you don't copy something from your phone, but you just use it instead of listening to your lecture, right?
Well, I can't speak to 300. We're fortunate at our university to just have 20 for a writing class. And because they know, the administrators know that teaching writing is hard work.
Well, for example, as for us, we don't mind using, for example, cell phones for making video of the lecture. So, well, for example, as for me, I can ask students to make some notes, so I'm not sure whether he writes quick enough or like, I don't know. So actually, what I say, guys, I do not care how you, save this information. You can make some pictures, drawing, you can make video, but I ask you to know. So, I mean, that's my policy, I'm sorry.
First year.
We also have something called a student code of conduct. And so, yes, there's an honor code that is specifically based on the information that Kristina had shared, but as a land-grant institution within the state of Minnesota, we're a public institution, and therefore the students, in some classes, not every class, but Kristina's, they do really garner the respect of her status as a Fulbright Scholar, the instructor. They trust her. There is this expectation that they are getting what they pay for, and they honor that professionalism that she has. And as she said, I can't speak to a classroom of 300, but the role I had prior to what I am now was all about online, and to maintain the integrity of any academic classroom, whether it's virtual or on campus. It's honor, it's respect, it's trust. And I think that that's one thing that the society that we live in now is losing. And whether it's multitasking or hearsay or whatever it may be, holding people accountable for their actions and their words sometimes is difficult. But, as a parent, you're not going to raise someone who is trustworthy, honorable, responsible, and respectful if you don't call them out on lack of integrity, mistrust, and lying. So it's difficult.
What I just wanted to say is that much depends upon the type of the class you have, and much depends about the objectives. What I mean is, if it is a test paper, for example, or we have to control the knowledge, to test the knowledge of our students, of course, we can warn them, put away phones, or what I say, just take your phones, put them in front of you, but with the phones back on. But frankly speaking, I don't know what I could do without their telephones and gadgets nowadays. Because you know that our universities, our schools are not so well equipped. We have almost nothing. It may be probably one computer for the whole department, or it may be, well, one computer, stationary computer in one of the rooms. So we are not equipped, no gadgets, nothing. The educational system is quite poor, let's say so. And having students' phones at hand, we connect as often as I need it as a teacher. Then I keep in touch with them and send them all the materials because books are outdated and all the modern materials are on the internet, for example. And teaching English, we have lots of materials nowadays, British Council, BBC, etc. So we can send a lot of things to them via phones, via, well, tablets, whatever. And even doing some tasks online, they do it on their phones because we don't have anything else. And what I notice is it's more convenient for them nowadays to download all those books that they need. And I remember that, well, I got used to their phones, actually, because that's a practical English class, for example. If not the lecture, it doesn't distract me anymore. Because first, I remember I could see the person with the phone, and my first question was, what are you doing there? Reading the text. Because they have everything there. Yes, of course, when they are idle during the class, probably they distract a bit. But when they are all involved, when they do the tasks, when they get the materials, when I keep in touch, when I find something interesting, that's the only tool that works nowadays. We have nothing more. We don't have computer labs. Well, we do have, but not so many. You see, so I'm for telephones, but depending on your objectives and depending on the type of the class. Thank you.
I could probably add to the experience that I have at UC. So I guess it depends on the particular instructor style or the subject that this instructor would teach. For example, I teach finance classes. And for me, I wouldn't say that would be that important, so the students would not use any type of technology during the class period. So I do trust students' ability to make mature choices. So if they're here in a class, and I'm not trying to police them in what type of technology they would use to complement their studies, to develop their learning habits. So to me, they are not at the middle grade school anymore. So I would guess coming to class, each student would have a chance to read contractual type of agreement, which is syllabus about, and me as an instructor, I could basically describe, okay, what would I expect from students to consider that students has been prepared enough to understand the materials in the class. So I did not control this. I used a completely different approach. But I would also, it's a subject-specific type of techniques that I'm going to use. Because during our class, students need to have certain access to evaluate, for example, stock markets and some other things. It's all website, accessibility that we have to have like this. Plus, they may use computers to make their notes. They are millennials, a new generation. They are already used to not to write, making those notes, but they type faster that they could make those written notes. So it really depends on the subject. It really depends on particular instructors. But so again, and we have, as instructors, have some level of academic freedom to decide. So what type of expectations we would have for our classes. So for example, I'm not using this type of controlling environment, but I would control each student who would do, what they kind of use. But it has to be respectful to other students, so it hasn't to be destructive for the learning process. So if we would see that, let's say, students make certain level of certain presentations, so I may ask students to be more attentive, close their computers, so we will have our undivided attention to their peers, because their peers may have some level of anxiety, some level of discomfort, so trying to overcome with that. So that type of environment I find more conducive to the learning stuff. So I guess that's very, very individual. I wouldn't say that all instructors do that style or that style, so it's really open.
Okay.
I would just want to remark, because it's like, an approach, if you can't
fight a problem or process, organize this process. So it's what we did in our university. I'm from Summa State University. So I would say that several years in a row, we have a contest for teachers, for professors, like for ideas of using mobile phones or tabs during classes. And then teachers, they get some bonuses like their salary, those who give the best idea also. And it's kind of introduced to classes and very natural.
Yeah, we're dealing with new generation. You have to adjust to this new,
So
mentality.
I've been asked just to share, so the three of us work at the University of Minnesota, and our institution is governed by the Board of Regents. So that's to whom we answer. And there is the Student Code of Conduct, and it includes everything from how you treat one another, your freedom of speech, your opportunity to express yourself, but it also holds the student to the truth of not plagiarizing. And so we are bound by our institution that serves the state of Minnesota. And it's just it's just, but it is a policy. And every student is expected to follow that code of conduct. And it ranges from discrimination of your color of your skin, to your gender, to what you say and what you write. And that is one of the tools that we use to hold people accountable for. I would assume that perhaps other institutions may have something similar. At our institution, you get an F. You fail the class. You get an opportunity to take the class a second time if you don't succeed. And it's a required class. You get to carry the F on your transcript. And so whether or not that is or isn't something that is applicable to other institutions or other organizations, but it is one of the standards that we have at our university.
I'm thinking maybe we can Google it and just...
Yeah, it's the...
Sure.
You can just go to the umn.edu. Yes, and then it'll come up with a search bar, and you can just type in student conduct code, yes.
And while you're Googling, I wanted to ask another question. How often you mentioned that you would have to write some letter if you caught somebody on plagiarism. How often
The fourth
do you
one
write
down.
these letters?
Oh, the first one?
It's probably once a semester, maybe once a year.
Yes.
It doesn't happen often. And keep in mind, I only have 2 classes. I'm not full-time, so I don't know about the other teachers that are full-time, what they have, how often they do it. One other thing, just along with what Michelle was just saying, well, something that hasn't been brought up actually is some students are gaming, and I do have my students in class have their laptops open to do in-class activities, so it's not like I'm anti-computer or anything. No, but I don't want them to be looking at pornography or gaming or anything like that while we're in class. But we do have some of those students, a few, that aren't showing up for class because they're up until 2, 3 a.m. gaming, the video games, or whatever they're doing. So, yeah. But
if it's 1 student per 20 students in your classroom, it's like...
yeah, hard to say. I can't speak for the other writing teachers. I just don't know. I would say there's probably 1 or 2 per semester.
Do other students know about this?
Oh, I try to be very discreet. They don't need to know that. I don't report, we've got some people that...
We also have, for new freshmen that come to our campus as a residential student, they go through an orientation. And the very introductory class, one of the introductory classes that they take, is they meet with the librarian, and he or she will go through plagiarism, how to cite your source, where to go to find information within the University of Minnesota Library, but also does review the student code of conduct, specifically on expectations of you as a student in each classroom. And so although it may or may not land on deaf ears, because these are 18 and 19-year-old students, at least we can say that we've presented the information. And then it sticks with some. And those that get caught, they get the letter, get the disciplinary action. But this is the document that the Board of Regents has approved, and you'll notice too, if you kick back one, there's also a faculty and staff code of conduct. So,
Thank you.
yes.
you.
Okay, just probably to conclude our seminar tonight, just want to say that yes, we do emphasize, we highlight the need of the university to have written rules of integrity that helps. This is kind of the first step to integrity in your university, to have it all written down, so everyone knows the rules to obey in further academic life. And just to conclude, just want to show you our website of our project, the SAIUP.org.ua. We have plenty of resources. We do post news about academic integrity activities. We started doing researches recently, so we also sometimes we post it here. And just if you are interested to know more about academic integrity, the tools, any recommendations, or any products that our project has developed so far, you can always go to resources, resurse, and check what resources we have so far. Here we sometimes we translate interesting articles, resources from, let's say, International Center for Academic Integrity, other universities. Yeah, interesting articles, as I said. Some materials that Conrad, you share with us. Yeah, some news, some recommendations. That's our research on 10 universities that we work with, on the level of integrity there, and level, actually in this case, the level of motivation of students for real learning, and a bunch of different stuff. The infographics on what is plagiarism to present to even pupils in school. The recommendations for academic writing course in Ukrainian. That was developed by our faculty community of our project. The honor code recommendation, what to start with, and so on. So you can always go to this website, check it out. There are a bunch of more that we need to post here, and we have it, but didn't manage to do it so far. But stay tuned, it's going to be here. Okay, for now I just want to thank you. First of all, thank Christine.
In my university, students from our desk are forced on the front to hear the teacher. So what we name it is like exit. Doors from back desks to the front desks.
Oh, I mean, yeah. That might be one of the methods, let's say, to put your students in front of the class to work with them. But if you have 30 students and the class is really big, well, yeah, it is one of the ways. Sure. Okay. Just want to say thank you to Christine again, to our colleagues Oksana and Michelle. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We just met, right?
Won't hold it against you.
It's easy to remember Oksana.
Sure. Our friends from Wisconsin Institute, all of you who joined us tonight. We hope to have more of such seminars because I see the good use of it in future. Thank you again, and stay connected, stay in touch with us if you like. Thank you.